how some of the external factors have an impact in the supply of meat.
Everything is interconnected. The meat world especially, we absolutely need skilled labor and even unskilled labor. We'll train you, right? And so that will continue to be a condition that we have to address.
Hello, meat folks. Welcome back to the MeatsPad podcast. My name is Francisco Najar, your humble host.
Happy, hungry host, Phil Bass. Francisco, I'm so excited to be back.
How's everyone? I was happy to be back.
Yes.
78th RMC.
Wow.
It feels like it was yesterday when we were at Oklahoma City,
Yep.
saying goodbye to everyone, but we're back.
Here we are in Columbus, Ohio. I just learned, I think it's the 15th most populous city in the country, in the United States. Lots going on here, lots of agriculture in Ohio. Spent some time in northern Ohio looking at some of the corn crops and excited to see that that's in the ground and growing, and warm weather is going to make that stuff shoot up, which is good for livestock and the like. So.
Thank you for the American Meat Association for having us back.
Yes,
I always think, maybe those interviews are not going to be good. They're not going to have us back. But this is the 5th or 6th time that we're here, and we're so happy and honored to have the opportunity to be invited and interview the brilliant minds in the meat industry, in the meat science community, and I love it. We have a lot of things to talk about, Dr. Bass.
Yes, absolutely. I was visiting with some students from Tarleton State, great university in the state of Texas, just the other day, and they're excited for what we're producing. And so, know that what's happening here is making an impact for sure. And so hopefully we continue to do so and serve our listeners.
I asked you when you walked in, and I think that was the first thing I told you. I was expecting you to be more calm and less thing to do. And sometimes we a little bit of like an industry oriented agenda that I have, and you have like more academia oriented agenda.
Sure. Yeah.
But we can start right away about a little bit of that. It's sometimes we get overwhelmed by everything that we're doing.
There's a
on
lot
a daily
going on,
basis.
Right? Yeah.
And
I get asked a lot, how you been? How are things? And I said, busier than I'd like to be, but that's not a bad thing. It just means that the opportunities abound. And it seems as if that is similar in the industry side, which I spent some time in prior to my time here in the academic role. And there's a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. And so, I think we should talk about kind of what our year has been, right? I know you've been traveling. I've been traveling. Shortly after we departed Oklahoma City last year, I was invited to go speak at the Brazilian Animal Science Society meetings down in Cuiabá in western Brazil, and definitely cattle country. Very different kind of set of cattle down there than the lower breed. It's kind of, I like to describe them as a cross between our Brahman cattle here in the United States and a racehorse. They're tall and slender, but they're set up for that particular type of country, and pretty cool to see all that. And did a number of gigs domestically in the United States, and going out and talking about, how great meat is. And so where have you been up to?
Well, I just not coming back, but we had a very good trip in Frankfurt. This year was the IFFA show. Again, it's celebrated every 3 years.
Yeah.
And we had the opportunity to go visit. A little bit different than 2022. 2022 when we're going out of COVID. But a lot of people from around the world. It was a good opportunity to be 1 week in Germany for that, and then I had the opportunity to go and visit some of our vendors, and it was fantastic. It's just good to see. One of the things that I saw 3-4 years ago, we were so focused on plant-based.
Yeah.
A lot of the equipment, a lot of the technology that was exhibited was just driven by that market.
Yeah.
And right now, pet food. It was everyone. Yeah. Everyone has at least something for that market.
Yeah.
And I think that was going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things more and more people interested in the co-product.
The co-product. I mean, we really need to focus on that for sure. Rendering has been a very, very important part. The traditional rendering avenues have been a very important part of meat processing because we have to deal with all of the byproduct, co-product, as you mentioned. But if we can look at it more as a co-product and not so much as a byproduct, I think there's a lot more profitability to be had. But that's where someone like you, who's in the industry, out working with and advising companies on different equipment strategies to make their world more profitable. From a professional in the industry, maybe talk a little bit about some of your interactions. Don't say any specific names, of course, but some of your interactions that you've had that, for folks who might be looking for career paths in the meats world, realizing you may not have a knife in hand cutting, but you are impacting those meat processors by working with equipment that's going to improve the bottom line, make their company successful. So tell us a little bit about what you've been up to.
Some of the things that I've seen so far is how some of the external factors have an impact in the supply of meat. And one of the things is we were talking about the tariff. There's one thing that we'll talk here in a minute about how that affects. I mean, right now I think we're at 10% of in my world, equipment that is manufacturing most of the equipment that is sold in the United States, and this part of the continent is from Europe.
Yeah.
And right now we have a 10% tariff on that, and that's one thing. We'll talk here in a minute about that. Labor. It seems we haven't talked much about it, but we have a lot of people in the plants getting deported into their countries, and there's a need for people. And again, sometimes you want to present or give an opportunity, but when you have those external factors, like, hey, now let's go back to basics.
Yes.
And rethink about some strategies. And the third one that I've been, it's going from 2024 to 2025. We also have the what do you call it?
The New World the screwworm situation. With now detected in cattle.
In Spanish, it's a different world, but we have a situation right now. It's been 4 or 5 weeks since the border for livestock coming from Mexico to the States was shut down. So I guess there's a lot of things going on. That they're not necessarily in our plan, but they're affected by it. And
I think this is a really good topic of discussion, honestly, because everything is interconnected. The meat world, especially, we absolutely need skilled labor and even unskilled labor. We'll train you, right? And so that will continue to be a condition that we have to address. And that's where the equipment that you're talking about, that you usually are merchandising, is meant to help fill gaps where labor might not be available, right? At the same time, maybe there's going to be incentive. This isn't a political podcast, by the way, folks. So just keep that, be aware of that. But maybe there's definitely a lot of technological meat processing advances that have been done in Europe. They are the top of the heap when it comes to kind of the new equipment that's out there. When folks think of sausage, they think of German manufacturing in many cases. This may also lead to the opportunities of domestic production of that manufactured of the manufacturing technologies here, and so who knows where that's going to go. But definitely, labor is going to continue to be top of mind. Now, something that you did just mention also is the New World screwworm that has been detected in cattle in Mexico, and I think this is. I tend to stray from hot current event topics, but I think this is a bigger picture, and it's an example of how we do need to be aware of the ancillary, the outside, more abstract things that are impacting the meat business in general. We in the United States rely heavily on weaned calves from Mexico. you have to think about, for those in the feed yards, it's a feed yard is essentially room and board. It's a hotel. And if we're not filling those pens, those producers who are in the cattle feeding world, they're missing out on their profitability and their business sustainability. And there's just times of year where the U.S. cattle population isn't enough to sustain some of those, keeping those pens filled. That's where we do rely on cattle from Canada and cattle from Mexico coming in to make sure that those folks that are in the cattle feeding business keeps those pens full, which then leads to making sure that we have plentiful product in the market. And we anybody who's been to the grocery store knows that meat is not cheap, especially beef. And so thinking about this kind of more abstract thing, this it's a parasite that has been detected in cattle in Mexico, and I believe they're in far southern Mexico is where it was detected. However, the entirety of Mexico is now under a microscope. This is now bringing in the veterinarians to be very aware of the meat business and how we need to continue to help the Mexican cattle producers focus on parasite control, so that we get this particular parasite out of the system, get some of those cattle coming back into the United States so that we can feed them and we keep the product rolling. And so, you talked labor, you talked about manufacturing of the technologies that you merchandise. So processing equipment and things like that. You mentioned the parasite. We haven't even talked about meat yet. Isn't that kind of cool?
Yeah, but I think it's interesting because, as you mentioned, those things affect our day-to-day operation. And sometimes you don't think, but it really creates or makes you a more because you have to understand those things.
Well-rounded.
Right.
That's why I love meat science, because you have to be a jack of all trades. You have to understand everything down from let's just focus on the animal sciences, genetics, maybe not so much reproductive physiology, but you can't have the live animal unless you do understand a little bit of that. The nutrition and how that's going to impact the final product itself. Animal management, welfare, all of that kind of stuff gets mixed back in because it's going to impact that final animal that is being slaughtered that leads to the final product that we're selling. But yeah, I think I love this conversation because it's leading us down other avenues. So we're folks that are out there maybe looking for a career. Again, just because you don't have a knife in hand cutting meat doesn't mean you're not involved in the meat business. And there's so many other great avenues, but still understanding the background of animal sciences and of meat processing and meat science helps you become better at consulting within your company or consulting for folks that you might be selling to.
Yeah, specifically the customers or producers, processors, they value that. Yeah. And the more prepared you are, not only in your field, but mostly in your field, but if you're more well-rounded, you're able to help them more.
Yeah.
And in more things that affect their day-to-day operation.
Yeah.
Right now we're working just on a quick example. In Mexico, there's more and more plans. They want to have an inline pet food operation, mostly for treats, like for everything that it was going to rendering. The hog, the feed, the horn, everything on the everything that was not utilized. They want to have that knowledge, and they're open to because there's a lot of people that have more years and maybe more experience than we have or than I have, but I think they start to value more specialized help.
Yeah,
where you tell them, okay, I give you this piece of equipment, but you don't need that only, right?
Yeah.
You need everything, the know-how of water activity, times of heat, the heat treatment, shelf life.
Yeah.
You need to have an understanding of contamination from the kill floor to the actual meat processing line where it's going to be treated for. Again, it's we go back to the basics. Is the more you know, not only in your field, but at least that you don't have to. At some point, someone told me, "Oh, it's better if you fly very good. It's better if you run very good."
Yeah.
And some there's somebody you cannot be as a duck. Like the ducks, they don't fly good, they don't run good, they don't swim good. But in my world, it really helps me to understand a more holistic view of things that you can help the ultimate customer, the ultimate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so, you have to keep in mind everything that's going to be impacting the final product. And I would say, I'll give you an example, and I think this will lead to possibly a really good podcast in the future. But think about if you happen to be in a really warm climate, right? And you're processing pigs, and you can have the best pieces of equipment out there, but if you don't understand that if the pigs are not comfortable out in the holding pens and they're overheated and under hydrated, they don't have a sufficient amount of water, or they're being held for too long, they're going to stress. That leads to pH problems in the meat later on. That leads to poor quality meat that's being sold, which leads to less demand for your product. And so understanding that the basics of meat science in that particular case is going to help make that product better, which eventually generates that pull-through demand for your product. You have to continue to think about how all those different things are going to impact your business. And equipment's a great thing. And hopefully, I remember when I was more in the industry side of things, I wasn't one to just say, we'll sell you anything you want. No, it needs to be right for the customer. It needs to be right for their business, and we need to focus on that. Now, I've taken that and applied it to the academic world. I have students all the time who I'm advising who say, I'm going to be a veterinarian. I said, why? Well, because I like animals. They said, well, you can like animals and not go to school for 8 years. Let's find what really is where your niche is. And if you want to be a veterinarian, great. I will help you in any way possible to achieve that goal. But there's also other different avenues, and not everybody's cut out for the amount of chemistry that it takes to be a veterinarian. But maybe you're also really good at math and logistics and moving things around. You might be really good at being an operations manager at a packing house, and you start working your way through that, and you start building, and you're able to manage teams really well. You don't have to, if you're really good at managing teams really well, that doesn't mean that you need to be a veterinarian, right? You're just finding the right avenues. And so it's just a different approach to the final product that we're selling. In my case, I'm trying to produce a final product of a high achieving, aggressive, disciplined, potential employee. You're selling great equipment that also is going to be incorporated in with the business of meat processing, right?
Absolutely.
Be a consultant.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you need people. And I think before wrapping up this episode, we have more and more AI, right? And
artificial intelligence. For those who are in the animal sciences, I'm actually writing a little article on this right now. It's the other AI. It's kind of funny how we've used a lot of terms in the animal science world. AI is one of them, artificial insemination. But now the greater world has adopted this abbreviation AI. And so now anyway, in my world, I always have to say, I have to really define what it is that we're talking about when it comes to artificial intelligence, AI. But
what project are you working on AI?
On AI? Well, actually, that's interesting you say that. We are working with a funder at the moment, and I have to be very careful because the data is still being collected, and we're still in the analytical side of things. But we are doing some surveys on meat quality and interviewing folks that are either new to the industry, have been in it for a while, or what we would call pioneers who have been in it for a very long time and maybe in the retired phase and can give us some historical background. Very long form survey interviews, And honestly, to be able to digest the information that we have collected without the being here now in 2025 with the availability that artificial intelligence is to us, we would not be able to do that. We would be sitting there trying to cut out little snippets or trying to identify with a highlighter in hour-long transcripts to find the nuggets, whereas artificial intelligence and many of those folks in that technological field call it large language models, which means we're dumping information in the form of communication of words that the software and the computing systems can now go and find patterns. That's really what it is. And it's nothing to be afraid of. It's a tool.
Yeah.
It's a tool that can be used for good. Now, there's also the side where I have students who use artificial intelligence for, I wouldn't call it evil, but less good, where it's writing their homework answers for them. Which, by the way, students out there who are listening and think that that's a clever way of skipping the system, it's very, very obvious. By the way, if a computer is writing something for you,
you can have another computer tell you so.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. We have systems out there. We have other computers that will tell us that this was written by a computer. So stop it. Do it the right way. Make sure that it's your own. That kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, you asked the question about where we are with artificial intelligence, and it's incredible. It's scary to some because people don't understand it. That's how it is with everything in the world. Things that we don't understand, we have a tendency to be scared as a human for survival instincts. I mean, that's what it was, hundreds of thousands of years ago when humans were first coming about. So it's nothing to be scared of. It's a tool. And actually, it's a pretty cool tool that if we were trying to do that survey right now, or trying to do this survey 10 years ago, we wouldn't be able to fully digest the information that's coming through there. So pretty cool. And it's being implemented in your own technologies now, I assume.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. There's a lot of things that, again, people are scared, oh, this is going to take my job. But in reality, what we're doing is just help you do your job more efficient.
Yeah.
So that you can do other stuff, right? And be focused on other things that really need your attention, not just, I don't know, like an example, right? Assessing, I don't know, marbling or something that it can be done by an objective measure.
Yeah.
Dr. Bass, thank you a lot for your time. I think I look forward to visiting, interviewing the folks this RMC here in Ohio. Appreciate everything that you do with that passion. We just need to keep pushing.
Keep it going, right? Thanks a lot, Francisco.
Thank you, guys. Look forward to seeing everyone and watch for the next interviews.
Yeah.
Thank you.